5 things to do if you don't know what to write. Hello, welcome back to my channel, Writing Practices. You sit down in front of the screen, ready to write. You place your hands on the keyboard even though you don't have a topic in mind. You trust that an idea will appear eventually because they usually do. But after 5 minutes, 10, 15, you're at a loss. You keep staring at the wall, sighing, getting more impatient by the minute. You close your laptop a little harder than you mean to, you get up, and you walk away. This is a common scenario for all writers. It's not writer's block. It's much too soon to call it that. But you do feel like maybe you weren't meant to be creative that day. Being unable to come up with an idea is exasperating. One of the most common questions writers ask is, what do I write about? Or a variation such as, how do I get ideas? One thing is for sure. Sitting and staring at the blank screen isn't going to give you ideas. You need to do something else. Here are a few steps by writing practices you can take so that you don't end up walking away from the computer screen. Check these out. Number 1. Read titles on Medium. What you need is a spark. Something that makes you think and eventually leads to an idea that turns into an article. While most suggest that you read entire stories, which also works, sometimes reading titles is just as helpful. Remember, great artists steal. You're not going to steal their content or their exact ideas. It's not about that. It's about one idea leading to another. A spark. It didn't start as a full idea, but it turned into one by merely looking at one headline. The key is to let yourself ruminate. Don't just scroll, scroll, scroll. Ask yourself if you can add something to what you read. Number 2. Read quotes. Assuming you're like all the other writers in the world, you have a collection of quotes somewhere, whether it's in an app or a bunch of journals. One quote can spark so many thoughts, opinions, stories, and memories. Or you could compile those quotes into an article. A quote can give you an entire article idea because we all have opinions about the shit we hear. That's a fact. You don't need to agree or be inspired by the quote. For example, I wrote an article called Why You Need to Stop Trying to Be Happy All the Time. The reason I wrote it because I dislike the quote saying, for every minute you are angry you lose 60 seconds of happiness. You can write an entire story inspired by someone else's words. Look through your apps, read the quotes, and think. You never know where they'll lead you. Number 3. Think about a struggle you're going through right now. What's something you're struggling with at the moment, and what steps are you taking to solve your problem? The thing about writing is you don't need to have all of the answers. You can talk about how you're feeling, make a public game plan, and go from there. Even if you don't have the problem solved 100% yet, you can talk about some of the steps you've been taking. What's working for you now? What's not? How are you thinking on improving your problem? You can even talk about someone else's struggles. Don't expose them, of course. We're not here to judge or mention names. For example, the other day my dad was talking about how he felt like a failure because he hasn't succeeded. Everything I said to assure him that he wasn't a failure, that he hadn't failed us, I wrote into an article. I knew that there are other people who struggle with the same issues. I wanted them to know what I told him. Think about your struggles and someone else's and talk about how you solved them or are thinking about fixing them. Number 4. Think about everything that's going right. On the flip side, you can think about everything you're doing right. While there are some areas in your life that you'd like to improve, there are some things that you do better than anyone. I used to let my mind spiral every time I had a negative thought. When I realized I did that, I developed some methods to control my thoughts. One day, while I was thinking about what to write, I asked myself this question, which is what you need to ask yourself. What am I good at, and how can I write about it? Once I remembered those methods that I use, I knew I could write article about it. So, what are some things you're doing right now? Maybe you can read 5 books in a week. Can you write about it? Perhaps you know how to use your bullet journal to be incredibly productive. Do you have a unique creative process, morning routine, or a way to deal with anger? You're good at something. Write about it. Number 5. Write with people around. People always say you should write in silence, isolated. But now and then, when you find yourself stuck or without an idea, surround yourself with people. As I write this, I've got a small group of friends around me. We're all working on our own thing, chatting and laughing in between, but you know what? It's working. And it's worked before. Lots of times before, when I found myself struggling, I would go to my room, which I share with 2 sisters, and just sit there and talk with them. I'd write down random thoughts I had during our conversation. When I say random, I mean random. I don't care what I write down, what I'm thinking, I just put it down, and then eventually, something happens. That spark is ignited. You get an idea and next thing you know, you have an entire article. Once you get that bit of an idea, excuse yourself, and go write your heart out. Final words. You don't need to sit in front of the computer, stressed. You don't need to spend half an hour worrying about what to write about. There are lots of ways to come up with ideas. These are the ones I use. There are more, such as reading, but I know you already know those. Not being able to come up with an idea is not the end of the world. You don't need to freak out or start believing that you're no longer a writer. You're a writer. You just happen to struggle sometimes, which is human. So, take a deep breath and apply any one, or all, of these steps. Step away from the computer because that's where the magic happens. Thank you for watching. Writing Practices channel will help you a lot in growing your writing skill. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment and share. See you soon.